Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Saturdays for the Byzantines podcast. My name is Professor Wren. I'm your host. Disclaimer, I am not a professor at any university, American or otherwise. I don't have a doctorate. Simply the reason that I use the title of professor, and again, it's a pseudonym. My last name is not really Wren. Sometimes you just got to be careful what you put on the internet. It doesn't matter how uncontroversial you might think it is. But I kind of think of this series as a way I can present almost a class to you, almost a Byzantine history class, and the only place you would really receive that is at a university. Most high schools, you're not learning anything like this, except unless you go to some rare classical type high school. But today, we're doing a shorter episode. Again, I've talked about how I wanted to do some shorter episodes, kind of release them during the week. Typically, our long episodes are released on the weekend. And but sometimes there's topics that I wanted to get to that I didn't have time to get to, or I kind of glossed over in the main podcast. And so I want to do shorter episodes to kind of touch on those issues and those topics as well. So today we're going to be talking about Monophysitism, which is another church heresy. But before we do that, I want to remind you that if you're watching this video, please, on YouTube, please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and then gently tap the notification bell so we never miss another episode when it'll notify you as soon as it gets uploaded. Please follow us on Apple Podcast, on Spotify, and on Google Play, and give us a 5-star review. Apparently 5-star reviews really help. And Instagram, follow us on Instagram at academics_95. That's ACADEMIX_95, where we post updates about the show. I'll post updates when an episode is uploaded, and we'll also post memes and other fun stuff about history. It's not always going to be exactly about Byzantine history. Sometimes it'll be about ancient history or medieval history. Excuse me. Things like that. And then you can also follow us on Twitter. Twitter page is not quite as active, but the Twitter, you can find us at Professor Wren if Twitter is your preferred social media. And so today, let's get right into it. We want to talk about Monophysitism. So what is the deal with Monophysitism? Well, it was started by a guy named Eutyches. Excuse me, not Eutyches, Eutyches. Now, who is Eutyches? Well, he was also from Alexandria. We mentioned in the last episode our friend Saint Cyril of Alexandria, who's the primary opponent of Nestorianism. Now, Eutyches, really should have practiced this more before I started. He's a follower of Saint Cyril of Alexandria. He's also trying to fight back against Nestorianism. However, he does it kind of clunkily and accidentally ends up preaching heresy. And so what he ends up saying is instead, Nestorianism was the idea that Jesus had mainly a human nature with a little bit of a divine nature sprinkled in there, not exactly divine from the moment of conception. And so Eutyches, in attempting to combat the Nestorian heresy, takes it too far in the opposite direction. So instead of saying that Jesus is fully human and fully divine, he says that Jesus is only divine, okay? He only has a divine nature. Now, if we look at if we break down the word Monophysitism, I always do this with students. Sometimes these words are big and they're confusing, and oh my gosh, I don't know what that word means. I gotta put the book down. It's so hard. Slow down, breathe. Let's break the word up into its component parts, and then we can figure out what it means. And yes, I did this, and I wrote this out on a notepad, and then I took a picture of it and I put it in a PowerPoint because technology is great. But so Monophysitism. So Mono, the first part of the word, just means one. Physite just means nature, and then ism, anything that ends in ism, means like a beliefism, a belief in something, right? So if you're a Buddhist, you believe in Buddhism, okay? If you are, if you subscribe to the philosophy of Karl Marx, you believe in Marxism. If you subscribe to the teachings of the Catholic Church, you believe in Catholicism, okay? However, nowadays you get, if you watch sports, I like sports, a lot of sports commentators will talk about how a guy has great athleticism. And it's like, well, what does that mean? Belief in athletes? Like, you can just say athletic ability. He has great athletic ability, and you're expressing the same thing while using real words. But anyway, enough about that. So yes, Eutyches says that Jesus only has one nature, and it's a divine nature, no human nature. Now, this is a problem because in order for Jesus to bring salvation to the world, he has to partake in the human experience, right? He has a full, the Orthodox teaching is that Jesus has a full human nature as well as a full divine nature, 100% human, 100% divine. And if you think about it for a second, if Jesus is only divine, how exactly does he die, right? You can't, if he's purely divine, you can't kill a god. So he would not, it would have been very hard for you to say that he suffers on the cross and dies and then resurrects. Because if you're not human and you're only divine, how exactly do you die? That's a real question in the issue. Now, this calls for yet another church council. And the big guy at this one is Pope Leo the Great. Now, this is the same Pope Leo who confronts Attila and convinces Attila to turn around when he's marching towards Rome. We'll talk about that in our Huns episode. And then he also talks to Gaiseric, who is the leader of the Vandals, and also convinces him. Well, the Vandals still sack Rome in 455, but they only take stuff. They leave people alone, which, sometimes you got to take it where you can get it. But so from the council of, and this is the council of Chalcedon, or you might say Chalcedon, depending. It is more of an Eastern thing, so you kind of have a tendency to take the Greek pronunciation, which would lean more towards the hard K instead of the softer C sounds. Personally, like when it comes to Latin, I am much more of of the ecclesiastical. I say Veni Vidi Vici, not Weni Widi Wiki, because it just sounds ridiculous. I always joke that the church saved Latin from itself because the classical pronunciation just sounds right, and the more ecclesiastical, the more Italian sounding pronunciation it sounds nicer, right? I understand the Romans didn't talk like that, all right? Like, cool your jets there. But so out of the Council of Chalcedon, where again Pope Leo is presiding over it, obviously, and he's involved in calling this, there are 4 things which come out of the council. Rules 4 things, essentially. So number 1 is that Jesus has 2 natures. Okay, so none of this one nature, again, monophysite stuff. Secondly, that those 2 natures were that Jesus was 100% human and 100% divine, not half and half, not 75-25, not 60-40, 100% human and 100% divine. The way I teach kids about this is I tell them, instead of thinking about it as splitting up a pie, right, like a pie chart, just think of it as 2 pies, right? So he's got 1 human pie and 1 divine pie. Right? Jesus is so great, he gets 2 pies. The rest of us, we get 1 pie, but compared to Jesus, are we that great? Not really. The council also rules that Jesus had both of these natures from his conception. So from the moment of Jesus' conception, he was both 100% human and 100% divine. And there's none of this, like, he becomes divine later on, or he was never really divine. He was just a really nice guy, or none of that. And then the fourth thing that it rules is that these two natures come together to form God the Son, who is the second person in the Holy Trinity. Now, Monophysitism will stick around for a little while, mostly in Egypt. There are still some strains of Monophysitism that remain in the Coptic Church today, although there are Copts who are in communion with Rome. The Church has basically decided that it's, you agree to disagree, and it's better to be in communion than out of communion with a lot of these groups. And so, although there is a difference, it's not anything that's, again, the better to be in communion than out of communion. But that really concludes our talk today about Monophysitism. Yeah, obviously there's more you could say about Monophysitism, but this is about all I want to talk about regarding the issue. So if you've made it this far in the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another episode. You'll get a notification when it's uploaded. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Google Play, please give us a follow and give us a 5-star review. I will be uploading the audio for this episode to the podcast feeds. However, excuse me, if you want to see the visuals, if you want to see the video, you're going to have to watch on YouTube. So you can listen to it and then you can watch it. You can watch it twice. It's fine by me. Also follow us on Instagram at academics_95. That's ACADEMX_95, where we post updates about the show and fun memes about history and various other things. And you can also follow us on Twitter at Professor Ren. So that's all I have for you guys today, and I'll see y'all's next time.